the disease killing 60,000 people a year. The emissary of death, Lissa, meaning violence, the disease that killed Edgar Allan Poe, one of the most feared diseases in the history of humankind, the beginning of zombie and vampire folklore, the killer of Cujo and Oriana. I quote, "Imagine future crawling into the mouth lunges and innocent victim, into the right springs kills its prey, into another raging monster. It's the way that unrelies on darkest tales of supernatural horror. But its power derives from a very real virus, a deadly scourge known to mankind from our earliest days. Rabies. Here is the history of rabies, the rabies vaccine, and what you as a pet owner need to know about rabies in your dog, cat, ferret, or other animal. Hope you enjoy.
Hey guys, what's up? Thanks for joining. Rabies is a disease that once one starts to show symptoms, there is no cure or treatment. It causes irritability, aggression, confusion, hallucinations, muscle spasms, paralysis, seizures, and ultimately, and without fail, death. And this is true for humans and other animals that are infected with rabies. These signs and symptoms, do they sound familiar? What about zombies? What about vampires? It's spread by the saliva of an infected animal: dog, cat, raccoon, bear, wolf, coyote, skunks, and bats. The exceptions do seem to be limited to rodents such as squirrels, hamsters, rabbits, and a few others. Rabies has been known since the beginning of human history. It's been called many things and been seen as the wrath of the god of death. It was first described in 23 BC in the Mosaic Esmuna Code of Babylon, which made the owner of a rabid dog pay a fine if they gave rabies to a person or dog. Treatments that have been attempted and failed include using dog hair on the wound or eating it. Sounds delicious, I don't know about you. Eating a stone from a cow stomach called an enterolith. It still kills many people today, still killing an estimated 60,000 people a year, most of which are in Asia and Africa, but throughout the world nonetheless. Pasteur started researching rabies in the 1880s, and he had already created an anthrax vaccine and was starting to do research on the rabies vaccine. There was a 9-year-old boy who was mauled by a rabid dog, and his family, knowing that it was almost certain death for this boy, called upon Pasteur and begged him to try his unproven vaccine on their child to see, would this treat it? Would it prevent it? Could we stop him from dying? And the boy, despite the vaccine not being tested or proven in animals, let alone in people, lived and never did develop rabies. And by the time Pasteur had died, about 20,000 people had actually received the rabies vaccine. And although the vaccine may not have initially worked, and there's some speculation about that, many years later, a new vaccine, which was a killed vaccine, was developed for humans and animals alike and has been very effective at eliminating and decreasing rabies in captive dog populations throughout the world. Cats, ferrets, horses, llamas, you name it. However, many other species are vaccinated every year, including many wild animals and other domesticated species. But there's usually limited legal protection for those other species. We vaccinate for rabies in order to protect people, and that's the number one goal of the states and of the government in general when they're regulating rabies. However, we do also vaccinate for rabies to protect your dog, to protect your pet from developing rabies. And in the US, although many cats are unvaccinated for rabies, we are starting to see most of our rabies cases actually coming down from cats. Many fewer of them are seen in dogs than it used to be. So I would recommend making sure your cats are vaccinated for rabies. Typically, most states are going to require one booster vaccine after the initial vaccination, and that'll be 1 year after the first vaccine. And then every 3 years after, However, other states, other locales may have specific requirements for proof of rabies vaccination, how long a rabies vaccine is good for, and what their very specific requirements are for how late somebody can be and still be on that 3-year program. Every state has different laws and what's considered on time, up to date. If there's different laws regarding the movement of animals with or without a rabies vaccine, and different protocols based on the state if an animal does bite a person, or if that animal is exposed to a wild animal. So check your state laws to know what they are. This can be done at rabiesaware.org, and this is a great place to find out what the laws in your state are regarding rabies. One other question that we are getting more and more often is regarding titers. Titer is a measurement of antibodies against a specific antigen, or in this case, a virus. And although the theory of titers is great, saying yes, this amount of antibody is protective, there's still a limited amount of evidence that shows yes, this is protective and this is not. There are currently no states that will recognize titers for animals in a case where there's possible human exposure, as the person's always going to come first. We also vaccinate wildlife against rabies with a product called Raboral. This is a type of bait, which is a type of bait that contains a modified live virus in a canary pox, and it's very protective against rabies. However, in domesticated animals and occasionally people, although rare, it could cause like a chicken pox-like lesion. However, it's easily dropped from planes, it appeals very strongly towards wildlife, such as raccoons, skunks, and coyotes, and is relatively safe for them. So if you do see one of these, which should be on your screen now in your neighborhood, leave it alone and then check out the Raboral website. And above all, don't touch it or let your dog eat it. Thank you guys so much for enjoying this video. I'm currently going through a book called Rabid, which is a really exciting book about the cultural history of rabies and a really good explanation of what rabies is. So if you have any interest in that, there'll be a link down in the description below, so feel free to check that out. And if you wouldn't mind, hit the subscribe button, as it would really help the channel out. And I would love to interact with you guys down in the comments. If you have further questions about this topic or want me to cover a different topic, let me know. Thanks guys, have a good rest of your day.